Hi, Miriam, Margot, Rachel, great to see you in person last night. Oh my God. And Laura, we saw in person. David Kurtz, great to see you. Sorry you're not here in person, but saw you last week. I'll have to deal with that. Okay, and we have a few people here. I'm not sure.
You have at least three.
What?
Yep. You have at least 3 Canadians here, and I know Yaakov really well.
Wait, you, Yaakov? Who's the third?
Marilyn's in Montreal, I believe.
Marilyn Bronstein, yes. Okay, that's right. Okay, everybody, we're going to begin. Grace. Grace is our wonderful Zoom moderator today. And in fact, we were just talking because she's going to be teaching TOTS later. I hope it's okay that I said that, Grace. The same Parsha. So we're going to, consider at some point what this Parsha is on a top level as well. Thank you, Grace. Okay, so we're going to have Yaakov in person. Can you do the bracha of the okay.
You don't have it here, sorry.
I
can do it.
But should we do it together?
Yeah.
Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Amen, amen. May we merit to soak in divine wisdom today and be granted illumination from the sparks of Torah.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. So we're going to dive right in. We're in Korach. I'm going to share my screen. Grace, if you can put the link to the source sheet on the screen, that would be great. Okay. Do people see the screen? I'm dealing with multiple screens now, so I'm a little bit confused. Let's see. Someone just unmute and tell me if you can see the source sheet.
It just shows that you're sharing your screen and nothing's turned up yet.
Nothing's turned up. My screen share is paused. Why is that? Okay.
I don't know.
Jeffrey, I need help. I see this, and here it says your screen sharing is paused.
So stop sharing.
The usual little
And then just
Roberta!
Hey, Roberta.
Sorry, just give us a minute.
Sit over there.
Yeah, sit over here. We're trying to share what?
For me, it's send you more information about the plurality and the handedness. I will.
Oh,
Remember you
I
asked
can
about
let
that?
go of this
I
whole thing.
know. Hi,
I
everybody.
have it ready to go.
Yaakov.
Yaakov. Hi, everyone.
Screen sharing. It's
Oh,
paused.
shalom.
Oh, resume share. Well, there you go.
The Alex?
There you go.
The Alex? Echo the Alex.
Stop it. You do that.
Toronto, we kind of.
Not resume share is not working.
I guess not.
Okay,
So you're
everybody.
not sharing.
Well, that's not good. That's not okay.
What?
That's not okay.
So
Okay, so you know what? Forget this because I know how to do it here.
Then.
What is this?
Then.
This is just another screen.
Do it here.
So let's disconnect from this and then I'll do it.
Oh, nice. Why don't we just share that?
Oh, okay, yeah, try that.
Oh, that's why I'm.
Try that.
Okay, so. this-
Pinchas, but I'm Pinchas.
Okay, did that work, Jay?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you. Okay, so
I think it's.
we're starting. Everybody
Yep.
in the room on Zoom, we are beginning.
Yep.
It doesn't look like it.
Oh, that's
Sorry.
Weird.
Hey,
Sorry.
We can imagine these.
Yeah, you're
faces.
gonna
Okay,
imagine
everybody,
beautiful
source
faces
one.
all over the world.
Be told Torah. Come on.
Yeah, it's a big, amazing team here.
Okay, so we're starting Korach, and I talked about this a little bit last night at services. Let me give us a little bit of background. So last week we looked at Shlachacha, right? Hi, Paul. The story of the spies, and what happened with the story of the spies is that 10 of the spies said, no, we can't go up, even though it is a land flowing with milk and honey. And 2 spies, yes, said, well, yes, na'aleh, right? Nuchal, we can, right? We can do it. But the whole the whole community, the whole kahal, the whole nation believed the despairing voices, not the hopeful voices, and completely lost faith. And there was a huge crisis and also a back to Egypt movement, right?
Yeah.
They said, like, let's appoint a leader. Rachel, please mute. I love your laugh, but please mute. Let's appoint a leader and go back to Egypt, like go back to the site of our original trauma, go back to slavery. It's insane, right? So there's nothing that's so fundamentally a challenge to God's promise and the whole project as let's go backwards. Let's go back to Egypt. So we can understand this story as conquest and political, but I'm not going to do that for our purposes today. I'm going to understand it spiritually as a tale about moving towards hope and promise and going forward and the challenges that there are to going forward. So then Bnei Israel, right, the people were grieving and, in crisis. And now in our parsha, in walks Korach. And I talked a little bit last night that Korach is, in my eyes, kind of a block to the grieving process. Like, let's now create more drama so we don't have to deal with the reality of what's going on. But that's a take, it's an interpretation. I could support it, but it's not the only reading. But so let's get into some basics about Korach and some other drashim and texts and see if we can really get behind like what is Korach doing. Okay, so I'm reading source number 1. Let's see. Vayikach Korach ben Yitzhar ben Kehat ben Levi v'Datan v'Aviram b'nei Eliyav. Share if there are enough, please. On ben Pelet b'nei Reuven. Okay, so Korach, son of Yitzhar, son of Kohat, son of Levi. So first we see that it's part of the Levite tribe, and Korach is actually a cousin of Moshe because his father is the son of Kohat, who's the grandfather of Moshe. Right? Unbelievable. So they are cousins. So already, you can imagine this sibling-like rivalry. And then we have on Ben Pel, B'nai Reuven, who's like the descendants of the eldest of Yaakov and Leah. So the eldest tribe who should have, privileges and merits, but don't really, like they're not the way they're encamped. They're not encamped in a privileged place, right? In the encampment in the wilderness. But there's something else here. And there's something else here that the translation really covers over. So it says, Korach betook himself. But that's sort of smoothing over a grammatical problem in the Hebrew. So the grammatical problem in the Hebrew is vayikach Korach. There's a verb, there's no object. Korach took. What did Korach take? Nothing. There's nothing. There's something missing. The sentence is not finished. And Korach took. That's it. That's the sentence. And then all the other people took too. Or no, Korach took, and then all these other people are listed.
All these other people are
Listed. But we don't know what Korach took. We don't know what the other people took. We don't know what's going on here. Right? So one way to interpret it is that Korach was grasping at nothing. Grasping because we grasp when we don't
At straws.
grasping at straws, grasping at something at I don't know, at nothing because Korach did not want to have what Korach had. Right? Korach was resisting his own existential condition. So again, that's my read of it. There are other reads of Korach, and we will get into them a little bit as well. Okay, people in the room, please share the text if you can. Okay, so then let's see what happened. Vayakumu lifnei Moshe, va'anashim b'nei Israel.
At least Rabbi Diane is at the Bima.
B'nei Israel chamishim u'matayim nisi'ei eda, kri'ei moed anshe Shem. So to rise up against Moses, together with 200 and and 50 Israelites, chieftains of the community, chosen in the assembly, men of repute. So again, just like with the Miraglim, just like with the spies, we are told these are big shots. These are men of status in the community, right? They're not some shmegegi out there, as I said last week in conversation with Rabbi David about Shlach Lecha. Okay, so vayikalu al Moshe al Haron vayomru alehem rav lachem. So they gathered against Moses and Aaron, and they said to them, rav lachem, you have too much, right? It's too much. Why? Because everybody in the community is holy. So who do you think you are? Right? Why are you set above everybody else? And God is in their midst. In other words, everyone has equal access here, right? Moshe and Aaron should not be set above everybody else. Umadua, and why? Nasu al kahal Adonai. Why do you raise yourself up? Literally, right? Why do you raise yourself up on the congregation of God? What did Moshe do? Vayishma Moshe, vayipol al panav. Fell on his face. Literally fell on his face, which, I think is read generally as an act of humility. Like instead of engaging in the power struggle, Moshe gives it up, surrenders. There's some act of surrender, not necessarily to Korach and to the men, but just to the whole situation.
Perhaps he's also embarrassed.
Perhaps he's embarrassed for himself, embarrassed for them. Yeah. Okay, good. All right, so we're going to do a few more texts, and then I will open it up. Okay, so let's look at Rashi. Rashi says some interesting things here. So Rashi, when I was growing up, going to Yeshiva Flatbush, we always asked, what's bothering Rashi, right? What's bothering Rashi? So here, we'll see by the answer, what's bothering Rashi. Vayikach Korach, and Korach took, lakach et atzmo letzad echad lihiyot nechalak mitoch ha'edah la'orer al ha'kehuna. So again, he betook himself on one side. So Rashi's addressing the first thing that Rashi's bothered by is the fact that there's no object for the verb vayikach, right? So he betook himself on one side with the view of separating himself from out of the community so that he might raise a protest regarding the priesthood to which Moses had appointed his brother. So in other words, why, given the fact that Korach is Moses' cousin, and I think maybe older than Aaron, I'm not sure, why isn't he the head priest, right? Why isn't he the Kohen HaGadol? Like, why does this status and privilege belong to Aaron? And then it says, V'zehu shetirgem Onkelos. So Onkelos, I don't remember what century Aramaic, right? Does anyone know? Some century Aramaic translator of the Torah, translates by kakra the itzpaleg in a reflexive Aramaic verb to separate, right? To separate. So Korach is the archetypal divisive character. Nechalak mish'ar ha'edah lehachazik b'machaloket. So Korach separated himself from the rest of the community, the rest of the congregation, to sort of hold on to, or lachazik, to hold controversy. Okay, or maintain dissension, it says here. Okay, so let's go on. So let's see. So, it's interesting. So Bible scholars say that there are two stories here woven together. One is about Korach. So let's go back up a minute. Korach ben Yitzhar ben Kahat ben Levi. So the Levites on one side, and then another rebellion story about Datan, Abiram, the Reubenites. And these two rebellion stories are woven together. So Rashi has to deal with both of these rebellions and explain them. So Datan va'Aviram, b'shvil shaya sheret Reuven sharui b'chaniyatam temana, shachen lekahat uvanav hachonim temana. This is a very interesting read, because Rashi is trying to imagine, why is Datan Aviram why are they in cahoots with Korach and Korach's men? So what it says here, because the tribe of Reuben had their place when they encamped in the south, they were neighbors of Kohat and his sons. So I guess they joined together because they were in proximity geographically to one another. So what's bothering Rashi here is like, why these two factions? So he's imagining a very geographical answer to that question. So they, the Reubenites, joined Korach in his quarrel. Okay, and then it says, and what induced Korach to quarrel with Moses? Okay, Umara Korach lachalok Moshe. So Nitkaneh, he was jealous. Al Nasiuto shel Elitzaphan ben Uziel, sheminahu Moshe nasi al bnei Kahat al pi hadibur. Amar Korach ache Abba arba'a sheyu shenemar. Okay, so they're quoting something in Exodus. He was envious of the princely dignity held by Elitzaphan, the son of Uziel, whom Moses had appointed prince over the sons of Kohat, although this was by the express command of God. So, I was reading something recently that talks about the complaints of Bnei Israel in the wilderness. They focus on Moshe and Aaron and sort of bypass God. They're always complaining, but they're not connecting to God, which I think is really, I never realized that. They're really like, they grumble against Moshe. They're just, they're Lashon Hara, gossip about Moshe. They're always railing against Moshe. And I think this
Typical congregation.
Typical congregation, right? Our leader is not good enough, right? Problematic. But I think this also reflects their reaction to hearing the Aseret HaDibrot, the 10 Commandments, when they said to Moshe, don't let God speak to us anymore. We can't take it. They'd rather connect to Moshe and they'd rather complain. Right. So one of the things I talked about last night is and this I actually got from Rabbi David, from grief to grievance, right? You take grief, you don't want to feel the grief because it's too painful or too overwhelming. And so you go to grievance. It's much easier to complain. It's actually much easier, my experience, to be angry than to actually feel your grief. Okay, so let me just see if there's anything else here. Less painful, for sure.
Some people say that's the purpose of anger.
Is to avoid your grief.
Yeah, so if we could receive other people's anger as it's their statement of grief that they just can't hold.
Yeah.
And we don't respond with anger.
Yeah.
We respond with compassion.
I think the other thing, I'm with you. I think the other thing about anger and grief is that grief is something that sort of comes over you. In anger, you're trying to regain control, right? With grief, you have to give it up.
There's an object, there's motion. We can't see God.
Right.
So what's the point of being angry at that?
Right. Let's try to control a situation. Exactly.
False empowerment.
Okay, so I think I'm going to skip some of this except for the end of this Rashi, and I'll tell you why. So there's some midrashim that are really interesting here about Korach's complaint or challenge surrounding, it's all around Techelet. So the blue string that are part of the fringes of the tzitzit that were just commanded last parsha, right? So because there's this proximity between that command and Korach, the Midrash likes to put it together and connect it and make sense of it. And the way they do that is that they put in Korach's mouth a certain challenge. They came and stood before Korach and said to him, this is later down in the Rashi, is a garment that is entirely of purple, techelet basically, subject to the law of tzitzit, or is it exempt? So in other words, they're saying, like, if we have something that's all techelet, why do we need to wear tzitzit? So they're trying to use their head sort of to get out of the commandments. Like, we don't need practice because it's all techelet, so we're going to get out of that. And Moshe says, he replied to him, it is subject to the law. No, you still have to do it. Whereupon they began to jeer at him. Is this possible? A robe with any different colored material, one thread of purple attached to it exempts it. In other words, they're describing what a tzitzit would look like, that it has a techelet fringe on it. And this that is entirely of purple, should it not be exempt itself from the law of tzitzit? Okay, all right, so now I think I'm going to stop my share. There's a lot, oh, one thing though. So that Techelet is the reason that it's Techelet, the rabbis say, is because in Exodus 24, Vayoru et Elohei Yisrael v'tachar raglav kima'aset livnat sapir. So they saw the God of Israel under whose feet was the likeness of a pavement of sapphire, like the very sky for purity. So that Techelet captures that pavement of sapphire. Okay, that divine vision. Right? It's such a beautiful, beautiful image. There's so much beautiful imagery on tzitzit, but that's not our parsha. So I'm going to stop my share and see who in the room and who on Zoom would like to say things. Okay, so Wendy, you had your hand up?
I believe in the Talmud, it states that any four-cornered garment, regardless of its color, needs tzitzit.
This is true. So Wendy says in the Talmud, it says that any four-cornered garment needs tzitzit. Okay. Anyone else? No. Okay. So we have a few people on Zoom. Okay. So I'm going to ask people, as I usually do, to be as concise as possible so we can have a bunch of voices in on the table and do some more text. Now, let me ask you something. When you hear people in the room, when people in the room talk, can you hear them? Or do I need to repeat? Not so much. Okay, thank you. All right, so, Razel.
Okay, so what occurred to me this morning is when you used a lot of expression in your voice when you were talking as Korach. So I was wondering, they say sometimes it's all in the tone, right? You could say, say I love you, or you could say I love you. Okay?
Yeah.
So if it is too much for you, it is too much. It is too much for you for the entire assembly. All of them are holy, and Hashem is among them. Why do you exalt yourself over the congregation of Hashem? Is it possible? I know it's a stretch. That Korach is saying, "We can help you, Moshe. It doesn't have to be all on you." It's not. Oh, it's too much for you. You're exalt.
Right. No, I love what you're saying, Razel, about tone, number one. When I was talking to Grace this morning about how to teach this to Todd, she was saying who are you to be the boss of me? You're not the boss of me, So that's great. So, and also I was talking to Tony Sternless, I don't know if he's on today, but, he was referring to some of the Hasidic interpretation, which I think is really beautiful, that talks about, the whole congregation is holy. Right. So the commentators don't like that, the traditional commentators, because it says in the Torah, Kedoshim Tihiyu, you will be holy if you do these practices. You're not intrinsically holy. If you're intrinsic, that can be a dangerous idea, because it means you don't have to do anything. Right. Yeah. So, but what Tony said, and he was reminding the Chassidut on this, is that Korach was before his time. It was like pulling unripe fruit. Uh-huh. So maybe what he was saying was really beautiful. Everybody's holy. Right. We don't need leadership, but you know what? Bnei Yisrael wasn't ready for it.
I guess, but the thing is, when Moses falls on his face, I think it's it's kind of like Yehuda saying you're right to Tamar.
He's agreeing. Interesting. Okay, I like it. It's a totally different cake. What? God doesn't agree with you in the Torah because God punishes them.
Well, they punish, except that the Psalms come back and the sons of Korach, they're rewarded many years later. But Moshe, does Moshe have Psalms? The song,
Psalm 88. Psalm 88.
Only one.
No, there might be more. I know Psalm 88 specifically. Does anyone else know? No. Okay. So that's okay. If anyone knows, put in the chat. Yeah. But great, Razel. Thank you so much for raising up Koach and making things a little more complicated. I love it. Okay. We are with Beth now.
Shabbat shalom.
Okay, let me just say, people in the room can hear, right? With people on the screen.
Okay. When we stand over there, we hear a lot better. It sounds going this way.
Okay, you can stand over there if you want. You can all okay. All right. Beth,
With regard to wearing a purple cloak, do you still need the blue tzitzit?
yeah,
When we look at the analogies of the blue tzitzit to the colors of the sky and the colors of the sapir beneath God's throne, the sky and the gemstone both are full of all kinds of dappled colors.
wait, what is full of dappled colors?
The sky and the gemstone
Oh,
both.
oh, yes, nice.
They're
We're
not-
back on gemstones, Beth. We were talking about gemstones a few
I
weeks
I
ago.
can't help it. Rocks were my life once upon a time. But they're full of all these dappled colors and different ways of reflecting the light. And so I think it makes perfect sense that we still need the blue tzitzit to distinguish that whole range. And just because the robe is purple and the tzitzit are purple doesn't mean they're blue.
Ooh,
Hard
so
to-
I feel like you've just made it so concrete as an artist would. That was beautiful. Thank you. Okay, Lars, Huh?
Sitting here, they need to have it a little louder. if you can
I
move
don't,
the
it doesn't go louder.
button.
Grace, can you do any magic to make this louder? No,
Your volume.
it doesn't go louder.
Okay.
Okay, are people hearing? Yeah, more or less?
Razel is louder than that.
Here, come sit here. Okay.
I can hear.
Okay, Lars,
But shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Great to see you.
I was struck by your discussion of pose last night. And, you know, as I was thinking about what you were saying, what in my mind, what Korach took was space, and taking space as an other in that space, it was taking space, which is what you pointed, and it was baldly taking space. You use the expression of bald and the baldness, and baldly taking space, which is claiming, okay. And so when I transport ourselves to present, it is what, you know, many an activist does in terms of taking space, baldly taking space. Space is not given, and taking space to speak. And so I've been having debates with folks about epistemological violence and taking words and of ancestors and diminishing, flattening them, removing their power. It's an invisible sort of thing, and yet it matters greatly. And so at threat of censure, at threat of, it may not make meaning in this moment, but it does make meaning in terms of future liberation, is to claim the space, to argue against leadership, and at one day, we hope we will see liberation.
Beautiful, Lars. So let me just, I just want to be clear on what you're saying. So you're saying Korach is baldly taking space in a way that could have been productive and that one day will be. Is that what you're saying?
Could be. It's saying I'm not an other. I've been reduced as an other, right?
Beautiful, beautiful.
And it's challenging the position of alterity. And
That's so beautiful.
alterity is taken into alterity. Otherness is not reducibility, right? And it's saying I cannot be. I will speak out against reducibility. I will speak out against this. I will baldly take space, even if no one is going to listen to me, and I will speak. But you actually have to, when you're in a position of alterity, what is seen as taking space is not necessarily always going to be loved. It's not going to be appreciated. It's not, but it's taking space towards future liberation
Okay.
of the many.
Okay, I hear it. So you and Razel sort of have like an emerging midrash and interpretation that is, legitimizing to Korach. And actually what I'm hearing you say, Lars, not only legitimizing, but like a model to give some of us who feel othered, you know, to empower us to like step up and take space. Okay, thank you so much. That was beautiful. Yeah,
I think
Yaakov.
I hear what people are saying now about the kind of populist kind of view of liberation that Korach takes. But I think intention is a very powerful thing. And for Korach, when it says Vayitpaleg, that he separated, he betook, I mean, the language that's spoken here is Vaychazek, that he. So for me, the connection is to Pharaoh. Vaychazek, the Muslim strengthened Pharaoh's heart to run after and to, hey, I have good intention, let's bring them back, and this, whatever. It's not for the Jews who are running away from slavery.
Yeah.
So the intention is important. If he takes it on himself to do it, it's not for, he says the right words for the liberation. Everyone is a Kohen, and rightly so. He's a very populist and he's correct for the future. But for the time being, his intention is power for himself.
Okay, so
Vaychazek
let me repeat for everybody here. So Yaakov is saying, Yaakov here from Toronto, is saying that the pivotal issue is really intention. So what's Korach's intention? And Yaakov's using the word Vaychazek that was used, I think, by Rashi for Korach to connect Korach to Pharaoh. That what he really wants to do is take power for himself. So we really have two emerging sides here. Tony's here, wants to say something, but I just want to say I quoted you already about Chassidut. So if that's what you want to say,
No.
we already said that. Okay, so you came late. You missed me quoting this.
Forgive me.
Say.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Tony.
I felt my ears.
Okay.
I want to mention or cite Rebbe Nachman of Bratslav, because in his teaching, with the little bit that's left, even if somebody's intention is 99% off base, how about that one little 1%?
Nice.
Goodness.
Nice.
That's one thing. And also,
Okay, let me just repeat that. So what Tony's saying is that the Nachman of Bratslav says, even if 99% of your intention's off, 1% is good, that means something. We need to hold it up.
and we as the community, or we as the budding, whatever we are, budding angels, budding Rebbes, take your pick.
I'm no budding Rebbe, but go ahead. Or angel.
I utterly disagree with you.
Okay, go ahead, Tony, go ahead.
That's another
Finish your
discussion
point.
for
Go
another
ahead.
day.
Go ahead.
The other thing is, it's for us to see and embrace that 1% and fan it to
Beautiful.
a flame. That's one thing. The other thing is,
Okay, Tony, last comment, because a lot of people are waiting.
one last comment. This is it. Yeah. The last comment is, from a Jewish Buddhist perspective, in the Zen literature, like in the Blue Cliff Record, it's repeated again and again and again, beyond conformity and rebellion. We need to get way beyond both of those things.
Oh, Tony saying something interesting. So get beyond conformity and rebellion.
Both, or embrace both.
Or embrace both. He's challenged, I think, that binary.
Yes,
And move beyond the binary.
Yes.
Okay, everybody in the room, you gotta wait because people are waiting here, so I'm sorry. Okay, we're gonna take exactly 5 more minutes of comments, whoever it is, great. And then we're gonna go back to the text. Okay, so we're going to Debbie.
Korach is the Parsha I wait for every year. It comes at Tammuz, which is about seeing. And I might have been on my journey back then with Korach, the one who's saying, yo, Moses, I didn't sign up for this tour. I wanted the other tour. I wanted what you promised me, milk and honey and blah, blah, blah. So
Moshe gave you milk and honey. You didn't want it.
No.
He said, no, we can't go up.
In Egypt, I had milk and honey. You're giving me the desert here.
Oh, in Egypt, you had milk and honey when you were a slave. I see. Okay, Debbie.
False memory.
So this Debbie, who I identify as Debbie, who was born in the 20th century, made it to the 21st century, who you know as Debbie, Deborah,
Yeah.
whose Vav is now getting stronger in the tetragram of my Yud He Vav He. My Vav is becoming a cedar. Yet I also get to be the reed So I get to be strong and flexible
Hmm.
at the same time. With Korach, he gives me the opportunity as a second generation this time to rise from the ashes, because my purpose was to wake people up, to say, whoa, what the frig is going on? I'm part of the 10 spies, they did their shit. Here I am. Here I am. Now what? How do I put this all into action? How do I get out of my chesed and go into Gavura and Devarti?
Shamati, wow. And I was gonna try to take that on, I'm just gonna let it stand. Thank you, but I love the image of the Vav and the strength and the flexibility, beautiful. I will ask people not to curse during the Torah session though. Debbie, it's okay, I really, like, your passion's fabulous, but it's something about it that is a little jarring to me, okay. Amy.
Hello.
Hi.
According to Wikipedia, Onkelos was alive from 35 to 120 CE.
Thank you so much.
And that this whole argument started because Moses said you should have a blue strand, and Korach said, "Oh, well, what if you're in a blue room? Then you wouldn't remember, because the blue strand would blend in with the room." So it's kind of a silly argument. But I did have one question. In verse 3, it says the entire community is holy, and among them dwells the Shekinah of the Lord. And I wondered what it says in Hebrew, because
Yeah, it doesn't say that exactly.
it doesn't
So,
use the word Shekinah, does it?
Can I look at it? Thank you. Okay, so it says, no. it
This
doesn't
is
say
verse
Shekinah.
3.
I know. It says, Kulam Kedoshim Ubetocham Adonai, and God is in their midst. That's it. Doesn't say anything.
So Shekinah is an alternative word for God is in their midst?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to know.
But God's presence is dwelling amongst us.
Oh, okay. Thank
All
you.
right. Okay. All right. All right. We have 2 more minutes of comments, and anyone who doesn't make it, no more hands for now. And hopefully we'll get you at the end. Okay. David and Nehemiah. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So every year I try and look at these parcels a little bit differently, and this year I kind of
Good thing to do.
Yeah, and so I got a little bit different take on some of this. So I really concentrated this year on Jacob, on Korach being from the tribe of Reuben. So who's Reuben?
Korach is not from the tribe of Reuben.
Oh, right, the other 2. But he is related in some ways to the tribe of Reuben, isn't he? Or
They're all related.
He's a Levi.
He's a Levi. He's a Levi.
He's a Levi, but the other 2
Atan and Aviram are Reubenites.
are Reubenites.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what kind of occurred to me is that, you know, of course, Reuben was the one who slept with the concubine, and Jacob said that you will never excel. And what I've been thinking about is just how what it feels like in a way to be trapped in generational damnation. You know,
Reuben
how do you?
is kind of a powerless eldest. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. He was the
Yeah.
firstborn, and his
Yeah.
right was taken away. And you know, so here you are. You know, in some ways, we're being introduced to a meritocracy, but a meritocracy in a theocracy. And the theocracy this is God's law. All of this is a theocracy at this point. You know, means faith to and to God. And so when that is questioned, that's the kind of thing that happens. So anyway, I'm kind of like wondering, the question is, what is it like to live in generational damnation?
Well, some of us know. We could probably answer that question. I don't know about you, David. But you know, that there's more and more research about how trauma is sort of travels down the generations. it's a different kind of damnation that you're talking about, but still.
Well, it's got to be frustrating to those that, come from that lineage. And in a theocracy, you know that your tribe will never be the one to really excel because of what happened a long time ago.
Okay, so let's talk about the Levites for a minute. So, it says, I think in Pirkei Avot, Ezahu Ashir Hasameach B'chalko. So, who is wealthy? That who is happy with their portion, their part. So I think this is about roles. I mean, even not in a theocracy, we all have roles. Are we willing to inhabit and accept and live with sort of whatever our role is, or we're going to rail against other people because we don't have their role? And maybe there's a time to do that, and there's a time not to do that. But to me, a lot of this is about not wanting to inhabit their own skins and their own portions and what was given to them to sort of how they needed to serve in this lifetime. Okay, Nehemiah, and while you speak, I'm going to share my screen, and Wendy's also waiting and been waiting for a long time. So, but
Okay, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
I would never like to put people in the ground before their time. That's not my mode of operation.
Wait, say that again. What?
To put people under the ground before their time.
Under the ground.
Oh, under the ground before their time.
But
Yeah.
I'm going to come with, I'm not apologizing, I'm going to come with total conviction in the pshat.
Uh-huh.
Korach is rebelling against his place, as you said, Rabbi Dayan. Yeah?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
It's the ego.
Uh-huh.
While the people who were prophesied in another time and were prophesied in the camp, and Moses said to Joshua, why do you make an ally? Why you are fighting for me more than I need? I wish all of Israel would prophesy. These people going for God, not for position. If I come and prophesy here in the synagogue, God gave me inspired, great. But if I come and say, hey, Rabbi Dayan, I can do better than you, I should be the rabbi here. No, that's come from my ego. So we should all be aware. Are we coming from the ego or from the desire to know Hashem? Dibarti.
Beautiful. So that goes back to Yaakov's point about intention. Let me just ask people, and then Wendy was going to say something brief. Can you see the source sheet or no? Asher Chaim, raise your head, yes or no? Yes. Okay, excellent. Okay, Wendy, what do you want to say?
In terms of Korach saying that you should share your responsibility, back in Parshat Mishpatim, on the direction of Moses' father-in-law, he already gave off the judgeship within the community to the heads of the individual tribes. So he already did that.
So Wendy's saying something very important. She's giving us some context from Exodus, Yitro and Mishpatim, that already there's been, a system of delegation in terms of, the courts and decision-making established. Right. So it's not that Moshe doesn't delegate, Wendy's saying.
Right.
So I love how these two camps are merging within us between sort of Korach and Moshe. Okay.
So,
Yeah.
excuse me, Rabbi Diane.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Your screen is sharing your calendar.
Oh,
and
that's
I
what I
just,
thought. Okay.
I didn't want personal information exposed.
Yeah, there's nothing horrible here, thank God, but thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
And you're very busy. You're very busy.
Can I just say two more sentences?
Yes. As I try to screen share it successfully. Thank you. Was that Lars who just saved me? Okay, let's see.
Sorry.
Oh, that was Ari. Okay, is this it?
That was Laura. Sorry.
Okay, is this it? No, you see my calendar again, right?
Just make your calendar.
No, that's good. That's good. We see it.
That's
Oh, no, they saw it. They just saw it.
Now it's gone.
Now it's gone. Okay, who is talking now?
David Kurtz.
Do you, Wendy?
Okay, Wendy.
There you go. Good.
Okay, Wendy.
You're sharing the screen along with your background wallpaper.
You're gonna have to deal with that.
It's not focused.
We can close it.
Oh, I can make it bigger. Wait, but no.
Yeah,
Okay.
hit the green.
Hit the green. Okay. Wendy, finish your point, because I want to do at least one more text,
The
at
other
least.
thing
maybe
is like
two.
kind of Korach was like ahead of his time in to tell the Moses that we are all B'Tselem Elohim.
We're all B'Tselem Elohim.
We are
Right.
all B'Tselem Elohim.
Right, so Wendy's saying that maybe Korach, and this echoes Tony's point from last night in our little private discussion about Chassidut, that Korach is ahead of his time, that
Right.
we're all holy, and that's the 1%.
And also going forward in the future, that the color purple would represent royalty.
The color purple, I love it, Tony Morrison, right?
Represent
No.
royalty.
No, no,
Will
Yeah.
represent
Royalty, yes,
going
absolutely,
forward in the
absolutely.
generations to come.
Okay, good. All right, so I want to do two more texts, at least one more text and one idea. And unfortunately, I have to leave on time because I need to go to services. What? Okay, we're in source number 7. Now, I never really paid that much attention to the source. And it's really a fascinating, I'm like blown away by this. And some of the midrash connects Korach to the source because of what Lars was saying before, the baldness, okay? So I want to look here, and this is also, it's a text about not grieving too much or not grieving in a way that you become self-destructive, right? And that could be in different ways, maybe with, long-term depression. That's a kind of, I'm not saying people have a choice over that, but that's a kind of self-destructiveness, or cutting oneself, which they talk about right here, or pulling your hair out, tearing your hair out. So it says in Deuteronomy, and the reason I love this so much is because this is number 7, because of the verse that comes, the preamble and the postamble. I know that's not a word. Okay. To these laws. So it says, first of all, I find this really moving. You are children of your God Adonai. Banim atem l'Adonai Elohechem. You're children. So what does that mean? Lo tit go to do. You shall not gas yourselves. Don't hurt yourselves. You're children of God. Below tasimu karcha, and don't pull your hair out, right? Ben enechem la mate, because of the day. So your life might have just been completely undone because of a horrible, horrible loss. But there's a limit to grief, I think the Torah said. The limit to grief, and that limit is don't destroy yourself. Why? Because you are my child. And then it says, and this is interesting because this really sort of is an echo of Korach. Ki am kadosh, I don't know why. There's something about this that really chokes me up. Ki am kadosh ata la'Adonai. For you are people consecrated, holy to your God Adonai. Right? Uvecha b'cha Adonai. L'hiyot lo l'am segula. Your God Adonai chose you from among all other people on earth. Mikol ha'amim asher al pnei ha'adamah, to be a treasured people, to be an am segula. So why is Korach connected to this? Not only because of the baldness and that, Korach and Korcha, right? Korach's name means bald, but because there's two things. This is a moment of grief, and what Korach is doing, it says al lo to go to do, and that means to make parts, to make into parts, to divide. And Korach is dividing the community. Korach is a divisive character. Elliot, quick comment.
Yeah, so what's interesting also is that Korach is complaining because he wasn't chosen.
Yeah.
But here, what it's saying is, no, you are chosen, you're chosen by God.
Yeah. So Korach is complaining because Korach is saying to Moshe, you weren't chosen. Or Korach is complaining because he wasn't chosen to be a Moshe-like figure.
Yeah.
Right. And here it says, you were all chosen. You're all chosen. There is an equality even within the theocracy that occurs. Okay, so now I want to look a little bit about at Cain and Abel. And why are we going back to Abel and Cain, or Cain and Abel? Because the Zohar says that Korach and Moshe are a reincarnation of Cain and Abel. Fascinating, right? So why would this be? Because there's this brotherly jealousy and sibling rivalry, which is like core to the Torah and core especially to Genesis. and erupts here in a particular sort of iteration that fits into the book of Numbers. So let's see what are some of the connections between the two texts. We are now in 8. Okay, we're just gonna do the, okay. Okay, all right, so I'm gonna start from 2. Okay, so Eve is having a second child. First she had Cain, and then the second one is Hevel. ותוסף הולדת את אחיו את הבל, ויהי הבל רועה צאן וקין היה עובד אדמה. So she then bore his brother Abel and became a keeper of sheep, and Cain became a tiller of the soil. ויהי מקץ ימים ויבא קין מפרי אדמה מנחה לאדוני. In the course of time, Cain brought an offering to Adonai from the fruit of the soil. The Hevel hevi gamhu b'cholot sono. So that's interesting. And Abel, for his part, brought the choicest of the firstlings of his flock. I say interesting because the bikurim reflect what we bring to the priest, right? When we enter the land. Mitzono umichel vehen. So Hevel is really focusing on bringing the first and the best. Vayisha Adonai Hevel ve'el minchato, and Adonai pay heed to Abel and his offering. And here's the big ouch, verse 5. El Cain ve'el minchato lo sha'a. But to Cain and his offering, God paid no heed. Ouch. Yichar l'chayin ma'od ma'od vayiplu panav. And Cain was very upset, very angry, or distressed, and his face fell. Vayomer Adonai el Cain lama charalach v'lama naflu panecha. And Adonai said to Cain, "Why are you distressed, and why is your face fallen? Halo im tetiv se'et v'im lo tetiv." Oh, I'm sorry. Halo im tetiv se'et v'im lo tetiv v'fetach chatat v'vetz. Surely if you do right, there's uplift, but if you do not do right, sin couches in the door, or crouches in the door. Its urge is toward you, yet you can be its master. And then here's another one of those unfinished sentences. Vayomer Cain el Hevel achiv. 8. Cain said to his brother Abel, "What did he say? Oh my God, we know when he said it and when they were in the field. But what did he say?" There's a lot of midrash about this. None of it's very satisfying to me. Biotam vayi biotam batadeh vayakam Cain el Hevel achiv v'yihargeu. When they were in the field, Cain set upon his brother Abel and killed him. So what Cain said to his brother Abel might have helped us understand why we kind of know why he kills Abel. But what were his last words to his brother? What did he say? What would he have said in that moment, right? That moment of anguish and pain and rage and horror, and yes, maybe escape from grief, right? By killing, by doing violence. Adonai said to Cain, "Where's your brother Abel?" And this famous line, Vayomer Yadati, Shomer Achi Anochi. And he said, "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" And it's interesting. You could say the rest of the Torah comes to answer that question with a resounding yes. Yes, you are your brother's keeper. Yes, right? This is the wrong question because you should know the answer. What have you? Okay, sorry. 10. Vayomer me'asita kol demei achicha zoakim elai minna adama. What have you done? Hark, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Ata aror ata min adama. Asher patzta and piha lankacha edemei achicha miyadacha. Therefore, you shall be more cursed in the ground, which opens its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. So, who is swallowed by the ground in our story? So we have that sibling rivalry, and then Korach is swallowed by the ground, right? The ground opens up. That's Korach's punishment. So there are interesting. There's actually a bunch of linguistic parallels that we don't really have time to go into around this, but we will look at this in 9, number 9, verse 31 and 32. So this is what happens to Korach. ויהי ככלתו לדבר את כל הדברים האלה ותיבקע האדמה אשר תחתיהם. It came to pass as he made an end of speaking all these words that the ground did cleave asunder that was under them. But תפתח הארץ את פיها ותבלע אותם בעברתיהם ואת כל האדם אשר בקורח ואת כל הרכוש. And the earth opened her mouth and swallowed them up and their households and all the men that appertained unto Korach and all their goods. Okay, so last text. Let's see here. So this is beautiful, beautiful kind of concluding text, this story that shows the authority of Aaron and establishes it through
Text 13.
of Aaron.
Aaron.
Text 13. It's sort of like, God showing who really has legitimacy and authenticity. So the staff, I'm just going to go through this quickly. The staff, the candidate whom I choose shall sprout. So I'm sorry, let's go up a little bit. Verse 17. Speaks to the Israelite people and take from them, from the chieftains of their ancestral houses, one staff for each chieftain of an ancestral house, 12 staffs in all, and scribe each one's name on his staff. Okay, so there's one staff for each tribe. Deposit them in the tent of meeting for the pact where I meet with you. It's like an interesting, elaborate ritual. And the staff of the candidate whom I choose shall sprout. I will rid myself of the incessant murmurings of the Israelites against you. Not really. It just continues, right? But it's a beautiful moment and a beautiful ritual, a beautiful miracle. Okay, so now let's see what happens. So all the tribes get staffs, and among these staffs was that of Aaron. Moses deposited the staffs before Adonai in the tent of the pact. And then here we see, what will we see? Vayinu mocharat vayavo Moshe el Ohel edut v'hinei harach mateh Aharon l'veit Levi v'yotzei Kerach v'yatzei tzitz v'yigmol shkedim. So the next day Moses entered the tent of the pact, and there the staff of Aaron of the house of Levi had sprouted. What a beautiful image. It had brought forth sprouts, produced blossoms, and borne almonds. It's interesting, Vayigmol is the same word for Gemilut Chasadim, loving kindness, and also the same word for camels who store water, right? And, as I mentioned last night, Korach not only means bald, but also means ice, right? So Korach is like the stuckness, the frozenness, the coldness, and Moshe, as we discussed, is the man of the water, who's drawn from the water, fluid, watery, moist, dewy. And so we have this beautiful, after Korach is swallowed by the ground, it's almost like there's something from that whole incident, and maybe this connects to Tony's comment before. Maybe there's something from the 1% that blossomed.
No mud, no lotus.
No mud, no lotus, and produce a kind of truth that became a symbol for all Bnei Israel, which is, yes, there are division in roles. And yes, the role of Aaron is a life-giving, flowering, blossoming, blooming role at its best. So, things go south very quickly after this. But that's like a nice, I think, symbol for all of us to carry around with, especially when we feel like a little frozen, given everything that's going on, how overwhelming it is. I know that my response is often to become a little frozen. So Roberta wants to say something, and we're going to end, and let me stop my share. Let's see if I can find you again. Hold on a second.
We have other people waiting.
Rabbi, have you seen that my hand's been up from the beginning?
Oh no, Jay.
Yes.
But you had a sign on you that said Korah.
Okay,
So-
okay.
Oh, yes, exactly. I want to defend Korach, and I'm very upset at the nature of the commentary here, to be honest.
Okay, stop. Okay. Roberta, one comment, and then Jay, I'm gonna really ask you to be brief because I have to go to service.
I will. I'm always brief.
Always brief. Okay, yeah. And Eden, I love to hear from you, so put your comment in the chat. I wish we had time, but I have to go to services. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I just was gonna say that the Parsha with source 13 that you brought us has come full circle. This is the taking from which harmony and collectivity sprouts and produces blossoms. So just to look back at Moses is following God's instruction about how to take.
Nice, beautiful. So Moses is following God's instruction about how to take, and that's what yields blossoms and flowering in life. That's beautiful. Okay, Jay, hit it.
I've been always very troubled by Korach, and even more so by the commentary. It seems much of the commentary is an apologetic in defense of Moshe. And it seems like that's the slant here as well. And I'm a pshat kind of guy. And to talk about pshat in terms of a certain intention, to talk about pshat as saying ego, and it starts with Rashi. I mean, if you look at the pshat of those first couple of sentences, Vayikach, it's clear what he's taking. He's taking all that, he's taking the other guys, the leadership, and all the verbs except Vayikach and Vayipol in the beginning and the end are all plural. These are not Korach. It is a whole bunch of people, including 250 leaders. And I don't know if the spies totally legitimizes any leadership other than Moshe, but to me, that's all very problematic. And it seems like the tenor of much of the commentary is to deny or question the legitimacy of these complaints and immediately come down on the side of Moshe. And that's troubling to me.
I hear you. And we had a range of voices today, and some of whom really raised up Korach. So I feel like that side also emerged, honoring and hearing Korach's voices. I'm not sure you felt that, but that's a good challenge to end on. And
the spiritual is political, by the way.
Oh, just sneaking that in at the end. Very nice.
Okay, everybody. I have to go to services. I'm sorry. Rabbi David's not here, so I'm on my way. I'm gonna let you. I'm gonna let you continue the conversation.